Hello friends, Tanya here with my Spellbinders 10 cards video for November 2024. The theme this month is cute critters and birthdays. We're going to start out with some prep as usual. We've got the small die of the month here and some glimmer foil. This is the rainbow confetti. This came with the glimmer of the month for me. And they do reserve the right to change which foil you get depending on what they have in supply. We're going to glimmer some cardstock, some hammermill cardstock with a reverse foiling plate. And you can flip over a large background plate and use the back of that to do some reverse foiling, but I happen to have this plate. And you can see that it glimmer foils beautifully. I do find that I have to heat that platform up a couple times to get a good first foiling. This is the glimmer of the month. This is Confetti Burst, and it has some coordinating dies for the sentiments that are included in this. I have a half sheet of black cardstock. This happens to be the Ohuhu black cardstock that I get off of Amazon. I have cut 2 strips of 3.5-inch wide by 5-inch wide pieces of foil, and I'll foil down this piece of cardstock 3 times. The third time I'll use just a 2-inch wide stretch to cover the entire panel. Look at that. Oh, I just love how that rainbow foil looks on black cardstock. Now this nests right into the previous foiling. And I'm just going to secure it using the hinge method with this piece of Best Ever Craft tape. And we'll put our second sheet of foil down and run it through the glimmer foil again. There are so many great colors of foil that this would work well with on black. Oh, I just love foiling on dark colors. It's such a great look. Now we're just going to do the last segment. You wouldn't have to if you're looking for a 5x7 card. You could probably get by with just doing those 2 foilings, but yeah, sometimes I don't know what I want to do, and sometimes I like having that little bit of extra foiled area to add to the inside or do some die cutting with. Yeah, there's lots of ways you can use that last little bit. Now when you are doing serial foiling like this, often all you have to do is put that plate back on the platform and let it heat up and then run it back through the die cut machine. Here is another close-up of the glimmer and the BetterPress of the month, Paint the Town. It has several sentiments here also and 2 dies that cut the 4 sentiments out. These are the glimmer plates. We've got happy and birthday and 2 long sentiments. And then we have 3 sentiments that are slightly larger than the glimmers and the large hooray. I've laid those all out on an A2 sized piece of copy paper on my glimmer foil, so I can easily foil this many times without having to secure each individual plate each individual time. And look at that. Oh, so cool. I mean, I have one that's a little wonky. We'll fix that. I foiled a bunch of pieces of cardstock in different foils using all of these sentiments, and I will cut them out as needed with the coordinating dies. Here I'm lining them all up because each one of these sentiments has a coordinating die, and I can run this through the die cut machine. And I have a whole bunch of sentiments I can use on my upcoming projects. I'm doing a bunch of glimmer foiling at the beginning of this video because there was so much to do with the glimmer foiling. Now I have foiled all of these different confetti and sentiments, and I have a bunch of that confetti, rainbow confetti foil that I can use for negative foiling. We'll do that in a little bit. Or maybe I already did. We're going to play with the, oh, I'm not done glimmering. This is the banner from the small die of the month, Confetti Bliss. And this says Birthday Bliss. I did see someone last month do some foiling with these dies that cut the letters into your paper. But I find that I like to use new methods, and this is pretty slick. And look how beautiful that foiled. Yeah, definitely going to become a go-to method to use those. I did go ahead and do the reverse foiling on a bunch of pieces of cardstock, and I'm going to use these for backgrounds and for die cutting elements, like balloons and cloud backers and that kind of thing. There is a really cute larger cloud in the, is that in the small die? Yeah, this is in the small die of the month, the Confetti Bliss. And it has two pieces, as does the turtle shell. I've got the balloons, the larger segment of the more solid segment of both the cloud and the turtle shell. And that's going to create a wonderful peek through area for those coordinating dies. Now we've got these balloons here that are these fun confetti foiled pieces. There's a little bit of mist foiling on some of those, so maybe I'll use those. Maybe they'll be a layering element, or they'll be tucked behind other things. And then we're going to die cut the fallout, the parts of these that have the fallout parts, or the piece that would show the holes that the shiny will show through. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. And I'll show you how these layer up so nicely. I'm using my Scout here. I happen to have the blue mist that you can get through, it's a limited edition color. You can get it at local individual scrapbooking stores or paper crafting stores. And I love the lavender too. I haven't decided if I'm going to get a lavender. And look at that beautiful turtle shell. I have a piece of watercolored green cardstock that I cut the part with the fallout pieces for the turtle shell. And for the cloud, of course, I cut it from white, and they have all of these beautiful little stars that are fallouts, and that shiny can show through. So let's start assembling the small die sets. Here we've got this cute little turtle. We'll add this green part to the foiled background. You could add whatever you wanted behind this. I just thought it would be fun to have that rainbow foiling behind the holes in the turtle dies here. We're going to use this very convenient black piece that you can die cut with the coordinating dies that adds the piece for behind the eyes. And I am going to use the little cheek die cuts here that add that pink rosiness. I don't always use the dies that fit on those. Often I'll just use my Copic markers and add a little pink to their cheeks. I do that both ways with this turtle and with the cute little sloth that we're going to assemble later. But on this one, I thought I would show you that you can just put the die cuts on there also. Here is that adorable sloth. There is a backdrop piece for his eyes also. It's just a little longer than the one for the turtle. I add that. And it also has a spot for, or it also fills in the back of the nose. Look at that. We'll layer on the mask part of his face. It's so cute. And then we'll add the cheeks. Again, there is one die that cuts out 4 little tiny circles, and these are for the cheeks for the tortoise or the turtle and the sloth. And there is our completed sloth. Very easy to assemble, and he is so darn cute. I honestly, I could have made several cards with that sloth, but I ultimately only made one, sadly. There is a cute little party hat that comes in this die set, and this, what would you call this? Balloon bouquet? Yeah, I'm using some of the treasured cardstock in the silver collection. We've got the glitter and the, I think that's the brushed silver or the matte silver, along with the foiled balloon. We'll also add that foiled backer behind the fallouts of this cloud. I love how this looked. I think I made 5 of these clouds, and I'll use them on several different cards. There are these assembled pieces from the small die of the month. Darling, I just love them. 2 different size clouds in there too. Here is the large die of the month. I believe it was called Hooray, It's Your Birthday. Now I am assembling this car wrong. There is a die for the backer for this car. And this piece that I'm using as the white walls on the car, they're supposed to be the shirt on the frog. Yeah, I assembled all of this, made one card with this, and then realized my mistake. Yep. I'm going to add the headlights and the tail lights. I die cut these from the reverse foiled rainbow confetti. And now we're going to add the wheels, and I'm really struggling with getting my placement here because, I used the wrong die cut piece to back this car. Whatever. It still turns out cute. Once I get these tires lined up as best I can on my make do white walls, I'm trying to figure out how to attach the seat. Now, if I'd used the correct backer, there is actually a spot to just glue that seat to. We're going to move on to our cute little frog here. We'll put his eye die cuts behind that. I love that they've started adding these. They do this for the alligator and the frog here too. Now you're going to see that the door handle doesn't have any backer on it. Again, would be taken care of properly if I used the right backer for the car. We'll assemble the steering wheel, and I'm going to try to tuck his hands one in front and one in behind, and that will help me figure out where we're going to place the back of the seat. I glue the frog to my naked little frog because he should have a shirt on. I glue the seat in behind the frog, and then I'm going to add some reverse foil die cut banners to this banner slash balloon, or no, this holds a banner that says Hooray and these cute little fluttering banners below it. This is another of the layered ones. I could have used that Hooray to Glimmer foil, but I did choose to use it in the traditional way to die cut the word Hooray out of that cardstock. I layered some reverse foiled confetti, rainbow confetti foil there behind it, and we'll glue that to the back of the card. This is pretty much how it's pictured on the packaging, and it's pretty darn cute. Now this alligator is also very easy to assemble. You can see that there are die cuts to go behind the eyes, and these kind of look like sunglasses, so you could use them as sunglasses instead of the backers for their eyes. These are the teeth for the alligator. I only use upper teeth on this particular one, but I will make another alligator with upper and lower teeth later. We'll add the spine to our crocodile, alligator, whatever we want to call him. I used a slightly darker cardstock to die cut that from. And this alligator was cut from some green or some watercolor paper that I painted with some green ink. We'll add his cute little bow tie. You could put the bow tie on any of the critters in this month's kits. It would work pretty well for all of them. Next, we're going to assemble the gift boxes that come in this set, along with some party hats. So there are 3 different party hats in this month's kits. Very cute. I've got this bow and cross here, and then there's another piece that I have used on the small package and on one of the hats here. Now it works better to assemble these hats with the stripes first and then the little topper, as I'm discovering here. I've die cut these from some silver glitter cardstock from the Treasured Cardstock Silver collection. Just trying to get this tacked down without it sticking to my fingers. The foil takes a little longer to grab that adhesive. That is one of the hats. There is a second hat with just a little pom-pom topper. And this time I'm going to put the stripes on first. Just going to adhere those. You line the one bar along the side of the hat, and the edges of those little stripes match up with the other 2 sides. We're going to add that little pom-pom at the top of this hat, and I decided to go ahead and leave that silver also. This is the small gift, and I'm using that same little floopy thing from that I use for the top of one of the hats on the top of that gift. And I like how the reverse foil looks as a gift. These are all the components that are included in the large die. Next, we're going to play with the Deluxe Caboodle bonus item. This is Party Time Cake. So if you get the Deluxe Caboodle kit, which is all of the kits for the month, then you get a bonus item. And this month, this die set is it. It makes this layer cake complete with a cake stand and a two-piece candle, and with the layering sentiment Party Time. Very cute. I've colored the different layers of this cake using my Copic markers. That first round piece there, or first layer, is actually one die, and I colored part of it with a teal color and part with a purple. And then the next portion is this circular piece, and the solid piece above that with that scalloped edge, that actually fits behind this circular piece that I just put on the top, the crown of the cake. So if you wanted to have a different color even on the top, you could layer those pieces together. I do that on a later cake. I hadn't quite figured out what I was supposed to do with that die cut piece at this point. Now we're going to assemble the sentiments. The words are 2 pieces each. TI is one segment, and ME is another segment for time. I've die cut the shadow from some brushed white cardstock and the sentiment from more of that silver cardstock from the treasured cardstock pack. I love those treasured cardstock packs. They are a great bargain. And I think the sale is still going on. If you wanted to get some of the multicolor packs of glitter cardstock, they are on sale for I think it's $5 for 10 sheets of glitter cardstock. I would jump on that, man. I do use some of it later. I just happened to discover it was on sale when I searched to see if it was still a current item. Now that I've assembled that, I will put a heavyweight block on there just to make all of it adhere nicely. Next, we're going to play with the stencil of the month called Squared Away. And I believe there are 5 colors or 5 different stencils in this layering stencil, and it creates a solid background of random squares. I'm showing you the colors of ink that I chose to use, and I'm using 1 color of ink for each layer of stenciling. I do have a half sheet of cardstock here, 5.5 by 8.5, and I finally got my hands on one of the 9 by 12 Altenew sticky mats. I'm very happy about that because I like it for stenciling especially. It just holds my stuff in place. I have a piece of packaging covering the half of the cardstock that I'm not currently stenciling. And I'm trying to remember to wipe down each stencil as I use them. I do ultimately do the other side with a different order of the ink, so I use a different color with each of these layers, but that's okay. I use saltwater taffy, dried marigold, scattered straw, twisted citron, and salvaged patina to create this kind of pastel rainbowy background. And that completes that background. It's pretty forgiving. I think it even looks good with those little bits of white peeking between. This is the completed half page. Next, we're going to play with the stitched die of the month, cross-stitched nested card front and tag. Look at all of these layers. In between each of the cross-stitch layers, there is a stitched layer, and then the very smallest is a tag. Here I'm showing you can create a frame. You can create a layer with just the cross-stitching on the edge and layer all of those up. Here is a quick way to get all of those holes to pop out. Just run the edge or the end of your pokey tool down the line of holes, and they just pop right out. I don't know where I figured this out. Maybe saw someone else do it. It's pretty slick. Look at all those white specks all over my desk. But it was a lot easier than just going through and poking it out of each one. Now I have my yellow thread all threaded up on my needle here. I'm using a 22 gauge embroidery needle here. I've tacked down the end with a piece of Best Ever Craft tape, and we're just gonna do my favorite method, which is instead of crossing both the front and the back, I am going my pattern is a straight stitch on the back and the diagonals on the front. So you're just going down one and go over one hole and come back up that hole. And I complete diagonals all along one side and then go back the other way. You can kind of see how neat and tidy the back of this looks and how much less bulk there is, since I am not doing whole crisscrosses on each side of the cardstock, just the straight stitches on the back, because you're just going next to, not across to the next. I know that's about as clear as mud. I'm sorry. But there you go. Now I'm just going to stitch through, or stitch through several of these straight stitches to secure that thread. It's not like this is a garment. You're going to glue this down to a project and it should not unravel. There are 3 pieces here. I've just done a diagonal all the way around one of those frames, and I've done cross stitches on each of those others. Next, we're going to play with the wax seal. This says Happy Birthday to You, and it's a nice square seal this time. I got the must-have bead mix in coral. Again, this is something they may change if they run out of this. They can substitute another color if they need to. I'm using that copper look plus a pastel coral color and a pearly coral color. I have my metal palette knife that I am laying on one of the chimneys here to get it nice and warm. I've heated up my wax seal. I poured on the darker color, the coppery color, and I'm using my hot palette knife to fill in all of the sentiment, just scraping off any of the extra wax. And I guess my seal could have been just a little warmer, but actually it scraped off nice and clean. Just cleaning that up a little bit, and my spoon is still hot because it was sitting on the chimney, and that's a great way to get that extra wax back in your spoon and clean up. I'll place that back in place. Here we've got our our coral colors. We've got the pearlized one and just the plain pastel, and they create a nice swirl. I create a little puddle for that and set my seal in that, trying to guide it to have nice even edges around the outside. Now, while I'm waiting for that to cool enough, the way I clean up my palette knife is I get it nice and hot and use a piece of paper towel to wipe that extra wax off. And then with the wax in these spoons nicely heated, I pour out the excess so I can create my own drops or beads of extra wax, and I'll just put those back in the little envelopes that are holding the same color. And again, while the wax is still hot, I'm using my paper towel to clean out the excess wax in the spoons, and they're ready to go for a different color. Now that this is cooled, I'll peel that off, and look at that. Happy birthday to you. And you don't have to use a marker to make that shine. I really love using 2 different colors. Finally, time to do the first card. We're going to use the Embossing Folder of the Month Cascading Streamers and the 5x7 Matting Basics B set. I'm going to use the largest die from that. I'll die cut a piece of white cardstock with that die, and then first I'm going to ink blend on this. I want to do that blackout technique with embossing, but I kind of want to do the Joseph's Coat version of this. So I'm going to ink blend these bright colors on this piece of cardstock that I've already die cut down with that piece of, or with that, did I die cut it? I think this is probably a 5x7 piece. Either that or I did die cut it down to the size I ultimately want, because you don't want to die cut after you've embossed. So now it's time to emboss this, but I'm going to put it so that it is face down because I want the impression to be on the right side instead of the wrong side. Now I'm going to use some black soot distress oxide. You can use whatever black ink you want. I just like the Distress Oxide, and I had recently refreshed all of my ink pads, so this is very nice and juicy. And as a result of that, I accidentally get my fingerprint on some of those streamers. That actually colored up very quickly. I did take my heat gun and dry that a bit. Next, I'm going to take some of this Distress Spritz in fossilized amber, give that a good shake up, and spritz that over the panel. I just wanted some extra gold shimmeriness to this. It's not in your face because this is the Distress Spritz. It's not the Distress Mica Stain Sprays, which would be a much bolder look. If that's what you were going for, that's what I would use. If you want a more bold spatter, I would use the Distress Mica Stain Sprays. Again, drying that quick will clean up our workspace. And I just have a giant, like a household cleaner sized spray bottle of dish soapy water and a microfiber cloth. That's how I clean my things. Next, I have the inside of the card here, and I'm covering part of the inside of the card with that piece of acetate. I spritz that with the fossilized amber also. I have a scrap of cardstock here. I'm going to ink blend with salvaged patina, and I'm going to use that to die cut this oval, scalloped oval from the large die of the month. This is going to make a nice backdrop and separate our main image from that very busy background. I'm also going to take some Rustic Wilderness and ink blend this piece of grass that I die cut. At least that's what I'm calling it. It could be water or waves or any number of things, but I want it to be grass. So we're going to die cut both of these pieces, and then I will glue them together. I'm just using some Barely Art glue in my fine tip bottle from Spellbinders. I still love that thing. I did forget to put the needle in it last week, and it was without the needle all week. And when I came back to my desk, it still was patent. That's pretty awesome. I'm adding a little bit of glue behind our cute little frog, who I assembled incorrectly, but still looks cute. And I'm just going to tuck that behind the grass a little bit. So it looks like he's driving along a road that has some tall grass, which is definitely a thing where I live. The ditches get mowed maybe twice a year. But other than that, you have some tall grass growing in the ditches. Now this is the one of the critters that I did not use the cardstock dies to die cut parts to put the cheeks on. I just used my Copic marker to fill in the indented area for the cheek. I've added some extra cardstock behind the embossed panel here, and we'll adhere that to a 5x7 card base, the one that I spritzed on the inside. I have extra cardstock behind our oval. And I did put just a smidge behind that banner end, and we'll center that on the front of the card. And the Hooray is going to be our main sentiment. Inside the card, we're going to use the clear stamp of the month, Confetti Wishes, which has lots of great birthday sentiments and coordinating dies for almost every single one. We're going to use the totally appropriate Sending a Carload of Smiles. I'm using some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and I'm using a scrap piece of paper, and I've treated that with an anti-static powder bag, and will clear heat emboss this. Just going to use my heat gun, and we'll watch this turn nice and raised and shiny, and that will show us that the embossing is complete. Once that's cooled down, we'll take the coordinating die from Confetti Wishes, and we'll die cut that. I've got my handy dandy Scout out to do that. It is really nice having a small die cut machine to do the things that you don't want to walk across the room for. And it's fewer cranks if you're using the smaller machine. Now it's time to assemble the inside. We've got our adorable alligator and two sentiments. This one is from the BetterPress of the month and was one of the many that I foiled and then die cut. We'll add a little glue to the back of this die cut sentiment and add this over the spritzed background with the fossilized amber distress spritz. Just adding glue behind each of these elements. I really do like putting die cuts on the inside of the card. I think it just really elevates the look of the inside and coordinates with the very handmade and detailed layered fronts that we make for our cards. Just going to center all of those, and look at that. It's your special day, sending a carload of smiles. I think that's perfect. Card number 2, we're going to use the Rosette Burst and the 5x7 layering basics again. We'll take that largest die, cut the white cardstock, and then run it through the embossing folder. I'm not going to do anything else to that embossing. It is so deep and luscious. I add a little bit of extra cardstock behind that embossed panel, and we'll glue that to our 5x7 white card base. And then we're going to take these other elements that I created earlier, and we're going to have our little sloth hang off of this little banner that says Birthday Bliss. I thought that was a unique way to use our cute little sloth. We've got our sloth and the word banner from Birthday Bliss, the small die of the month. And then the glimmered portion is from the Confetti Burst Glimmer of the month. And I die cut that using the scalloped oval from Hooray, It's Your Birthday, the large die of the month. And then we also got the Hooray from the BetterPress of the month, Paint the Town. And then we also got the rectangle from the cross-stitched nested card front and tag. I think that's what it said. So that's one of the pieces that I die cut and stitched in the prep portion of this video. I've added extra cardstock behind each of these layers, and we'll center that all on the front of the card. I've added extra cardstock behind our sloth and the banner, and we will adhere that just so. I want to make sure that the arms of our sloth cover parts of the banner that it's easy to tell what it says. Next, we're going to take the clear stamp and die of the month, and we're going to use May Your Birthday Be as Delightful as You, and another piece of scrap cardstock with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and I will again heat emboss this with some clear embossing powder. Again, just going to use my heat tool. It's still a little warm from the last use, and it will melt into this raised and shiny, beautiful sentiment. This actually works very nicely since we're going to use a glimmered main sentiment on the inside of the card. I've die cut that also. So we've got our rainbow confetti glimmer foiled Hooray. That's die cut from a panel from earlier. And I've adhered that to the inside of the card, and then we will add the rest of this sentiment. I love all of the sentiment stamps, dies, and glimmer foils and BetterPress. We have lots of awesome sentiment options this month. On to card number 3. I got a little crazy here. We're going to use scattered straw and dried marigold and create a variegated yellowy orangey sunshiny background. Just going to add this kind of randomly, adding the dried marigold now on top of the scattered straw, and I'll come back with the scattered straw and blend that all in a little bit better. This is a 3 by 6 inch piece of cardstock that I die cut with one of these precision layering mini slimline dies. We're going to run that through the Rosette Burst 3D embossing folder of the month. And I thought this looked like a bunch of little suns. So I'm going to highlight some of these by using the Wild Honey Distress Oxides here and my mini ink blender. And this works pretty well to selectively ink blend some of these rosettes. I'm just kind of scattering them across the front of this card, even doing some of the partial circles. Just going along kind of randomly, not having any real pattern in mind, just looking for some balance on the front of the card. Kind of creating a couple of different visual triangles. Now that I have all of those areas highlighted like I want them to be, I will come back with the Fossilized Amber Distress Spritz. Boy, that's getting a lot of mileage on this video. And we'll just spritz that over the entire panel. And I did do where you can push the pump part way down and you get bigger blobs. And I like that look. Otherwise, it's a fine mist. Next, I'm taking a fine tip Sharpie. I just got a box of 12 of these puppies. I love a good fine tip Sharpie. And I'm just adding little smiley faces on several of these, all of the ones that I use the wild honey on. I'm adding a little face to. I just thought that looked like a whole bunch of suns. I suppose they could be daisies too if you wanted, but to me they look like suns. Now that I have all of those little sun faces added, it's time to pick, oh wait, let's adhere that to the mini slimline card base. This is going to be a 6.5 by 3.5 inch mini slimline card. And I'm sorry, I forgot to zoom back out. I zoomed in so you could see what I was doing with the smiley faces. And we're going to play with some of the Shine Bright collection. This is the Sparkle On Sentiments. It has 4 sentiments and coordinating dies. These are BetterPress plates. I'm going to glimmer with them. We have the Shine Bright sentiment strips also. There are 2 plates with several sentiments on each one and a coordinating die for each of them. So I'm going to glimmer these on some Desert Storm cardstock using some gold foil. Now I'm going to flip these onto the Glimmer platform, which is already hot, and add my foil and the cardstock. I'm also going to set up the larger sentiment, the one that has an individual die, and tape that down. Ran that through my Glimmer foil machine. And now it's time to line up the sentiment dies. There's 2 different dies for 2 different lengths here, and they have these slanted banner edges. I think these are very clever. Now there's our finished foiled larger sentiment, and we'll find the coordinating die for that and die cut that. Easy for me to say, eh? Die cut 2 extra layers of white cardstock to layer behind this sentiment that's going on the front of the card. And I will choose another of those banners to put on the inside of the card. Now I just have to find a good spot to add this to the front of the card because I don't want to cover up much of those extra, the select little suns there. I decided to choose the world needs more of you for the inside of the card. The front of the card says Sparkle On, my friend. All very fitting. I'm loving that Shine Bright collection. It is gorgeous. I don't have the disco balls yet. That's the only thing I need to purchase yet. Here are the Peach Opalescent sequins. There are 3 sizes of sequins in this collection or in this package. And I've had these for a while and I love them and I keep using them. I am scattering some of these sequins above and below the main sentiment. I think it's just the perfect touch. And I'm back to adding sequins to the inside of my card. I'm just using my pokey tool here to make sure those stick well to that very embossed front. I'm going to add just little dots of glue, not overthinking this, just scattering it across the inside of the card. Again, using 1 of each size of the sequins above and below the banner. Using my pickup stick, it's very nice to have one of these embellishment tools. It makes it very easy. And sequins inside your card, yeah, works very well. Card number 4, we're going to use the 5x7 matting die again and the Stencil of the Month squared away. I had made that large panel and we're going to use it. I'm also taking that scalloped oval from Hooray, It's Your Birthday, the large die of the month. I die cut all of those pieces out. We're going to save that dropout piece for later. I die cut a slightly smaller piece of cardstock to fit behind our stenciled panel. And I found a piece of, or one of my packaging from my products that I got in the mail. Not even sure which product it was. And I'm going to cut this down to create a shaker card. I need this to be about 4.5 by 6.5 inches. And since this is a full bag, when I'm done, I will have 2 pieces that are 4.5 by 6.5 inches. So I'll have one for this card and one for another down the road. Now that I have the packaging there, the clear packaging, I'm going to take some double-sided sticky tape here and line the edges of this piece of cardstock. We'll peel those backers off. I like to use the pointy end of my pickup stick to loosen those. Otherwise, sometimes I end up pulling the whole adhesive back off. And then we'll just line up this piece of clear acetate. And this is pretty flexible since it's just a bag I'm recycling. Got a little wrinkle here. We'll straighten that out. And now it's time to create the shaker well. I'm using some of these dimensional strips. These happen to be from Trinity Stamps. I'm pretty sure Spellbinders has them also. When I was a design team member for Trinity Stamps, there was a bad batch of these. A manufacturing error, we'll put it that way, of these strips. So there was only adhesive applied to one side of them. So they came with a naked back. Well, that's okay. I will just add my own adhesive to the back. She didn't sell these. She offered them to us on the design team in case we thought we could use them instead of just pitching them in the garbage, which I thought was a very responsible thing to do. We don't want to put things in the trash unless we have to. And I will take the inconvenience of having to add my own adhesive to the back, whereas someone who has purchased these is definitely going to want the adhesive. I'm just going to use the same dimensional strips here to add height to the entire panel. I don't want any saggy panels here, so I'm just being kind of strategic in adding these strips so that I cover most of the spots that will need a little extra reinforcement. Now my oval, my scalloped oval here, I did make sure all of the ends of the the adhesive strips are stuck together so nothing leaks out. I'm going to take some sequins from Trinity. We've got kind of a goldish yellow sequin, cupped sequin. We've got a limey green cupped sequin, and then we have some flat glittery discs that we're going to add. I'm just using another tool to help push these out into one of my triangle trays. I like the metal triangle trays because they don't get any static on them, and they are very easy to add the sequins and stuff back into the little package. Now that I have them all in the tray and made a mess using my pickup tool to pick up all of those strays, we'll carefully add those to the inside of this. Now that I have all of those sequins in, I'm going to add my adhesive. If these were proper strips, foam dimensional strips, I'd peel the backers off and then put the sequins in, because you don't want to be trying to peel the backer off while you have sequins bouncing around on the inside. They end up just sticking to your adhesive. We'll seal that up. I found it is easier to add an extra piece of cardstock here to create your shaker than it is to try to center this on your card base, at least for me, and I'm pretty good at centering things. I do like to have an even mat around my panels on the front of my card. I don't like it to go right to the edge of the card base, so that might be part of why I find this a better way. And we'll add a little extra weight on there to make sure it sticks nice. We're going to use the party time cake again, and this time I've cut the layers of the cake and the extra frosting topper from glitter cardstock. Now this is the Spring Colors of Glitter cardstock from Spellbinders. And again, I believe these are on the clearance rack right now for $5 for a pack of 10 sheets, 8.5 by 11 sheets of glitter cardstock in 5 colors, I believe: white, green, blue, pink. Maybe it's only 4 colors. I can't remember for sure, but it is it's a great value. I am adhering this to a gold That must be from the Treasured Gold cardstock pack. Yeah, it's the brushed gold from that pack. And the glitter the glitter cardstock is sometimes a little hard to get the adhesive to adhere to quickly. Going to adhere that to the front of the shaker panel over the acetate, and it sticks to that super fast. We have sentiments from the BetterPress of the month with the Hooray in gold on black, and the same for the smaller sentiment. That's from the Glimmer of the month, and that one says cake, candles, and confetti. Oh my. On the inside of the card, we're going to take just one of the stencil layers, and I'm going to do all of the colors on this. I'm just going to randomly apply the pink, the orange, the green, and the blue. And we'll come back. No, that's the pink, the yellow, the green, the blue. And fill in all of the spaces, adding a little extra color where it needs a little extra help. And then we'll lift that up, and I'm being careful not to let that get anywhere other than the stencil area. We'll take one of the sentiments from the Clear Stamp of the Month, Confetti Wishes. We're going to use the May Your Year Be Sprinkled with Magic. I'm going to use my open-sided stamping platform. I can't wait for my new Altenew 2.0 to come. That is 9 by 9 inches, I believe, with a side that comes off. So I'll be able to put my card inside of that. I will use my favorite black ink for sentiments, and that is the Versifying Claire Nocturne ink. Just making sure it gets enough contact with the paper. Sometimes that magnet holding your card, at least with this particular platform, can make it a little tough to get a good solid inking. With the stamp wheel, that's not a problem because you're not using magnets. We're going to use the Precision Layering A2 dies here, and we're going to use the Cascading streamers. It's finally time for an A2 card, and I think I've used 2 A2 cards in this particular video. I used that panel and embossed it with the Cascading Streamers embossing folder of the month. We'll adhere this panel to our card base, and I did add extra cardstock behind that, some cardstock scraps. The same with the scalloped oval that's left over from the previous card. We'll add that a little bit wonky on the front of our card. And then we're going to use our cute little turtle and that cluster of balloons. Now, I didn't really like that rainbow foiled one, so we're going to use the wax seal of the month over the top. That really coordinates better with this card. This is pearl white with some matcha as the letters. That's the colors of the wax beads that I used. And they really coordinate well with our cute little turtle. To make this work a little better, I'm adding a little height behind that seal by adding a couple scrap pieces of cardstock behind that over the top of the other balloon that I'm covering. Now that that's all assembled, I add a little glue to the back of that cluster of images, and we'll adhere that right to the card front. Now the Happy Birthday to You wax seal is going to be our main sentiment on the front of the card. For the inside of the card, I'm assembling a couple of gifts. I've got some scraps of that squared away stenciled cardstock and some white glitter cardstock that I cut the bows with, and I am assembling those. The Birthday Bliss die of the month, small die of the month, is where we got the blue, all of our main images. The oval is again from the large die of the month, Hooray, It's Your Birthday. And the gifts are also from that large die of the month. We'll adhere those on the inside of the card. Just going to stack those up. Again, so cute. I love to add die cuts to the inside of the card. It really adds a nice touch. Now for a sentiment, we're going to go right back to that Confetti Wishes clear stamp and die of the month. Actually, we don't use the die this time. We're going to use the sentiment, sending wishes wrapped up and tied with a bow. I thought that was perfect with the little gifts on the inside of the card. And that finishes card number 4. 4? 5? Must be 5. On to card number 6. We're going to use the confetti burst with the black glimmered piece, the birthday bliss for the clouds, and then I'm pulling in the tunnel clouds that came out this summer. We're going to do some layers there, and the 5x7 matting basics B again, and we're going to use the same die, that largest die, to die cut all of our panels that are going to layer together. I've taken a couple sheets of gray cardstock here, a darker gray and a lighter gray, and we're going to layer those all together. I cut the centers out so that they layer and create this tunnel vision. I'm going to take the top layer and emboss it with the cascading streamers, and then we're going to use the pearl luster gilding polish, or if you've got solar paste, you could use that also. I am using this pearl luster gilding polish to add some extra detail to the streamers. And now that is all complete, look at the shine on those streamers. I love it. That's a preview of what this is going to look like, and you can change the orientation of your cloud. Oh, I'm showing you which embossing folder I used. You can change that until the opening or the aperture is the way you like it. I have in the past assembled this by adding extra layers of cardstock between these different layers of cloud elements, but I decided to just glue them straight together and see how it looked this time. I'm trying to get this lined up appropriately. And we'll layer the lightest color on top, just making sure I add enough glue. And I don't want to put it all the way to the inner edges because I'm going to be tucking some items in underneath the edges of those layers. Just lining that up nicely. And I did audition this on a number of different colors of cardstock for the base. And I decided that it looked best with the same color cardstock as that top layer of cardstock. So we had that lighter gray. I'm going to line that up and center it nicely. Again, I don't like my card layers to go all the way to the edge of the card base. I think it looks better this way. We're going to add a piece of white cardstock to the inside just to add a little extra heft to our card base, because you could easily write on the inside of this light gray cardstock, but I wanted that extra heft because this is not, I think this is only like 80-pound cardstock. I'm adding a couple extra layers of cardstock pieces here just on one end of this particular cloud, because we're going to have two clouds, and this one needs a little extra height to make up for the layers that are not under one end. I love the little rainbow foiled stars peeking through these clouds. I think that's a perfect touch. It goes perfectly with the whole feel of this card. Next, we're going to use the Hooray and the Time to Celebrate from the BetterPress of the Month Paint the Town. I'm adding a couple layers of extra cardstock behind each of these sentiments to help them stand out a little better on this tunnel card. Tunnelscapes, is that what those are called? Yeah, it's just so much fun. I have all of the tunnelscapes, and I am certain that I'll be using more of them. Just going to add the 2 layers behind this longer, smaller sentiment. Sometimes I have to chase those around a little bit. If I didn't keep my nails so short, it might be easier for me to pick up these different pieces. We'll get those lined up, add some glue behind them, and just adhere them directly to the front of the card. I thought I had a little smuts on the H, and decided I better quit rubbing or I'd end up with dirty, gluey fingers all over that. It's happened before. We'll add that card or the acrylic block on there to let that dry. And when it's nice and dry, I'm going to assemble our balloon cluster here. I have more of the treasured cardstock silver balloons here in matte silver and glitter cardstock silver, and I have more of the reverse foiled balloons. Now these are a little more solidly glimmered, so they look a little better in this cluster, and I think it's perfect on this card. I'll just going to add a little glue behind the extra balloons. There's only 3 strands to glue to the balloon strings, but I like an extra full balloon cluster. So I like to add a few more extra balloons, and feel free to do that. There is no reason you can't. One more balloon here, and you can see that I have a couple of the small clouds from the small die of the month. We'll add, I'm going to dry fit, or I did dry fit this a little bit to see where the balloons should go. We'll add those, and then I'll take our sentiment strip and add glue to that. And we're going to put that over the joined end of the balloon strings. Get that to adhere nicely. And I brought in a third of these clouds. I decided to take out my clear wink of Stella and add a layer of that to our clouds to have those stand out a little better. I did go back and put a second layer of clear wink of Stella on because this clear wink of Stella was nearly out. Time to break out a new one. Or add a little water to the inside of the clear wink of Stella. Sometimes you can extend the life of your clear wink of Stella by adding a little extra water in it if there's still plenty of glitter on the inside. We'll just add those 3 clouds, and look at that. So cute. I love that. That would make a good card front too. On to card number 7. We're going to use the Confetti Burst Glimmer foil plate again. I have a full sheet glimmered with that rainbow confetti. We're also going to use some elements from the Hooray, It's Your Birthday. Here is the car assembled properly, and the frog has a shirt. These colors all coordinate with the rainbow confetti foiling. We're also going to use that 5x7 matting set again in B. We're going to use that, my favorite of the 5x7 matting layers, that one that is about 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. I'm also going to cut a strip of each the light gray and the dark gray cardstock that is about 1 1/4 inches, and this is to create a road element. I have a this is a die that is for sliders, and I can't remember if Spellbinders has one of these. I don't remember one off the top of my head. This one happens to be from Trinity Stamps, and I did end up modifying it a bit. We're also going to take that grass strip, and we're going to do some partial die cutting here so I can extend this into a full 7-inch long piece. We're going to make a card with some action. I want my little card to slide, or excuse me, I want my little car to slide back and forth across the front of the card. I've got my grass item cut out here. Now this was not perfect, but I'm just going to take my scissors after I get the tape removed and trim off so it looks like it is a seamless piece of grass. And since this isn't like a really specific die, that's easy to do just with your scissors. I'm going to take my ink blending brushes here, or mini ink blending tools. Is that what they're called? Yeah. They still have plenty of ink on the sponges. And since I have dedicated sponges to each color, I have Rustic Wilderness and Twisted Citron. And that makes a nice vibrant grassy edge. Now it's time to start assembling that slider motion here. I'm just going to line that up on our card, just kind of dry fitting everything here. And that's ultimately how those are going to layer up. Now that I have my slider component, I'm going to assemble the piece that runs in the slider. And it is a bunch of these little circles that I'm adhering together. That was the die that had several circles on it. I'm just test fitting it here, and they, you know what? They don't quite fit. I'm remembering that those were actually for a different element, but we're going to make this work. I took my X-Acto knife, and I'm making this track a little wider, and I'll have to come in with my scissors because that didn't cut all the way through, and sometimes it's easier just to use the scissor, especially if you already have a hole to work in. I did have to go back and adjust this slider hole a few times, but I'm not going to make you watch me do that. I just kept testing it at each step of the progress until I got it to work appropriately. Now we're going to put our little slider mechanism in that slot. It has a larger circle above and below the slider element, and we're going to bring back those adhesive strips again. Just going to add those on the top and bottom of this panel. Now you need this panel to be at least 1.25 inches so you have room for the mechanism to slide without interference on each side from the adhesive strips, because those add a little space for your slider to go through, but they need you need enough space between it to create a track wide enough. Again, because I have adhesive strips that don't have sticky on the back side, I add a little bit of liquid glue, which does create a little extra dry time needed. Now it's time to add the frog in the car to the slider mechanism. Now I thought one of these slider mechanisms was going to do the job, but you're going to see here in a second that that's not the case. I'm going to need another slider element. We'll take the grass section and add that to the back of our road, and we will adhere all of that to the glimmered panel that's going to go on the front of the card. Yeah, you can see my car is front heavy. We'll fix that in a minute. Now it's time to trim the excess off of each side, just using my scissor to trim those off. I've been really enjoying these, I don't remember what they're called, but the spring, it opens the scissor without your effort. I love those. They don't hurt my thumb either. I'm adding that second slider element that I constructed the same way, but I did have to trim the top larger circle a little bit so it would not show behind the car. Now that I have that all assembled, it's time to adhere that to the card base. I do have extra strips of cardstock on the back of this panel also because, yeah, I don't know that I can do this without it. I think it just really adds a little extra something, a little extra height and stability. Now that that is adhered to the front of the card, you can see the car slide back and forth. It could use a little extra weight. I know people have used pennies in the past as the very back piece to help add a little weight and make that slide a little easier. Next, I'm going to adhere our main sentiment, which says it's your birthday. No, it's your special day. And this is again from the BetterPress of the month. I did put a couple extra layers of cardstock behind that. And there I'm sliding that car again, playing with it again. Inside, I'm going to take that last scrap of the glimmer foiled background that I trimmed down, and we'll center that inside the card and add sentiments from I think the happy birthday is from the Glimmer of the month, and the time to celebrate is from the BetterPress of the month. They all coordinate so well. These are glimmered in gold on black cardstock and die cut with their coordinating dies, and I'm just going to adhere those to that glimmer foiled panel. Makes a nice place for those to land on the inside of the card. I love that I had all of these glimmer foiled sentiments all pre-done and could just rifle through my little container of sentiments and add them to my cards as I went. It really saved a lot of time. There we go. Had to play with that a little more. On to card number 8. We are going to use Paint the Town. and we're actually going to BetterPress with these paint swooshes. There is a registration sheet. I like to print off the cardstock versions, or this is typing paper actually, or copy paper, because the paper absorbs the ink that you get on there by accident, and the acetate BetterPress registration sheet does not absorb it. So it gets transferred to your panel usually. I have a 5x7 piece of watercolor cardstock taped to the other piece of this, all ready to go. And I am choosing one, well, there is a different color for each shape of paint swoosh on that registration plate. I'm going to use Cruise, Teal Topaz, Wilted Violet, and Lilac Bloom. And I have 3 different ink types here. We've got the BetterPress inks, we've got a Distress Oxide, and we have a VersaFine Clair ink. I've found that it's best to rub these on your panels. That can make your felt pads start to fray, but I get a better application. I keep picking up this one BetterPress plate with my ink pad. It just wants to stay stuck to the ink pad. Just going to get that nicely inked, and then we're going to use the Wilted Violet on the last one. Now each of these paint swooshes will have an assigned color, and I'm finding that it is even best to swipe the ink on with the Distress Oxide also. And look at that, just lovely. Now it's time to move these to the next spot that these are marked for, and I can only get 3 of the plates on right now, but that's okay. I inked those plates up again, ran it through, and we'll do this I think 2 more times. I have to figure out which spots still need to be filled with a plate and inked. Just trying to figure out which one. I think it's just these 2. Then I'll re-ink them with, that one was the Wilted Violet, and I think it's Cruise. Or is it Teal Topaz? No, I think it's Cruise this time. Add that. And I chose my colors from the cake that I assembled at the beginning of this video, because we're going to use that cake. One more pass. I have just one more panel or plate that needs to be run through again. And that will completely cover that area. That will fit an A2 size card front. I'm going to use the stitching die of the month, and I'm using one of the stitched panels. This is the one that is just smaller than the 5.5 by 4.25 inch panel. And here is that party time cake that I used to create the cake we're going to put on the front of this card. And that again is how I chose the colors for these paint swooshes. I've added extra cardstock behind each of those panels, and we're going to assemble them. There is a backdrop for the cake that I die cut from white cardstock using the smallest of the stitched rectangles from that die set. I love that we have both the stitching and the cross stitch versions of these panels, and they're just so fun. We also are going to use the party time that we created at the beginning of this video, trying to make sure that this rectangle is adhered straight on our card front. I was doubting it because those swooshes are not straight lines, and it was making me question myself, but I was straight. I don't know how I do it. We're going to add an extra layer of white cardstock behind the party and the time, just to make those a little more dimensional, a little more impactful, help them stand out from that very busy background. Once I have those layers adhered, we'll adhere those to the card front. I did place that rectangle a little higher than centered, so I'd have room for the sentiment below it. We're also going to add some of these Prism AB Color Essential gems. These have been in my stash for a while, and I've used over half of the packet. This is a fun purpley blue blend iridescent gem. And there are 4 sizes of gems on this sheet, but I used the last of the largest, so we're going to only use one of those on this card, and that's okay. And we're going to do 3 groupings of gems scattered across the card. And I changed my mind where I wanted those. And there we go. That is the front of the card. Inside the card, we're going to use another of the Glimmer of the Month sentiments and another sentiment from the Paint the Town or BetterPress of the month. So inside the card, it's going to say cake, candles, and confetti. Oh my, it's your birthday. So much fun. These sentiments are very much birthday oriented. The stamp set also has the sentiment cake, candles, and confetti. Oh my. It also has it's your birthday, and a few of the other sentiments repeat themselves, but that's okay. Sometimes you want more than one way to use those sentiments. That's it for card number 8. Now it's time for card number 9. We're going to use the Paint the Town BetterPress of the Month sentiment. It's your special day. We're going to use the turtle and the party hat from Birthday Bliss, the small die of the month. And we're going to use the happy birthday from the Glimmer of the month, Confetti Burst. And we're going to use the Rosette Burst 3D embossing folder of the month. This is going to be a 4-bar card, and I already have a piece of cardstock that I cut down to 3 1/4 by 4 3/4 and ran that through that Rosette Burst embossing folder, 3D embossing folder. And we have the sentiment, it's your special day, that I've layered up. I've added some extra cardstock behind our cute little turtle. We'll glue the hat to his head. And then I do have to come back and add a couple little, I think 3 little tiny strips of cardstock behind the hat to keep that nice and level on the front of the card. Just going to add those layers. I like to do this with my scraps. However you want to do it. If you want to use dimensional foam, that works too. I know that I will have lots of birthdays to use these on in the next year, and I don't always do a ton of birthday cards, so it's nice to get prepared for those January and February birthdays, because we all know that the next couple of months are going to be cuckoo bananas with all of the family events and such that we're going to be participating in. Let's adhere that Rosette Burst panel to the front of the card. Of course, there's extra cardstock panels behind that. We'll adhere our sentiment. I do put the turtle down so I can make sure I get good placement of that sentiment before I make sure it's pressed down. We'll add the turtle to the front of the card. And I did think about confetti or gems, but I decided to keep it more simple. This is probably what you would call a clean and simple card for me. And on the inside, we're just going to adhere the words happy and birthday to the inside. Just going to center those as nicely as I can, add some glue, use my reverse tweezer to help me with the placement. And there we have the inside sentiment complete. Again, loving that I did all of these sentiments beforehand. On to card number 10. We're going to use the Hooray, It's Your Birthday large die of the month again for the alligator. And we're going to use the birthdays and the birthday strings from the Birthday Bliss. And we're going to use the Precision Layering Mini Slimline A die. And this is 3 1/4 by 6 1/4 inches. We're going to use the Cascading Streamers embossing folder to create a panel to go on our 3 1/2 by 6 1/2 inch card base. I did cut an extra layer to put behind our alligator to give him a little extra height and dimension. We'll just adhere him. Now this is not the spine portion, so I'm just being careful to get the legs to line up and the eyeballs to line up, and if those fall into place, the rest will do just fine. Time to adhere that to the front of the card base. Oh, first let's put our streamered panel onto the card base. There is, of course, extra cardstock behind that panel. Now it's time to center this alligator. This is a landscape orientation for the card. I'm going to use my pokey tool to peel up the alligator a little bit on the top there so I can tuck the balloon strings under his body. He's not getting to float away with the balloons, but he's bringing a bouquet of balloons to the birthday party. I have balloons in orange, kind of a rusty red, and blue. These are all from ink spattered, ink smushed cardstocks that I die cut. These were in my mixed media section of my rainbow of paper scraps. Just making this a really nice full bouquet of balloons. There will be 2 of each color on the front of the card, and that will leave 3 balloons for the inside of the card. Just trying to spread these out fairly evenly so we don't have 2 balloons of the same color touching each other, or at least trying. I think that didn't work out with this rusty red. We'll add our last 2 balloons. Just trying to figure out that last balloon's placement. And then it'll be time to add the sentiment. We're going to use the cake, candles, and confetti, oh my, from the Glimmer of the month again. Again, it is so nice to have all of these sentiments available to just pull out of a little bin when I'm making a large batch of cards. I'm just going to adhere that directly over the balloons. I didn't add any extra layers behind that, just glued it right on down. Now I'm going to, I'm going to assemble this balloon cluster with the 3 remaining balloons, and this looks full enough to me for the inside of the card. We'll adhere this to the far right end of the inside of the card, just adding dabs of glue on the strings. And I want that little bar at the bottom to hang off the card base so I can trim that off later. We're going to take a sentiment from the Confetti Wishes clear stamp of the month. We're going to use the May Your Christmas Be As Delightful As You, not your Christmas, May Your Birthday Be As Delightful As You. We'll use the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink and stamp that close to the balloons. That gives you plenty of room to write a personal message to the left of the inside of the card. And now it's time to trim off that extra piece on the balloon cluster. On to card number 11. Yeah, 11. There's a little sneaky one in here. I have a bunch of gifts and 2 of the party hats from the large die of the month. And we are going to use the reverse foiling from the Confetti Burst Glimmer of the month. We're using a couple of pieces from the stitching die of the month that I've already stitched. We've got the cross stitched and a regular stitched. This is going to be another 4-bar card. I'm going to take that reverse foiled piece that I've cut down to 3 1/4 by 4 3/4, and we'll adhere that to the card base. This is a 3 1/2 by 5 inch card. We'll add glue behind just the stitching because the cardstock part of this isn't going to actually touch the panel I'm gluing it to. This is the stitched rectangle that is just larger than the cross-stitched panel, and this makes a really fun little frame. I've added some extra cardstock behind that stitched rectangle, and we'll adhere that to the front of the card. This centers actually pretty nicely, even though those are created to work with A2 size cards. It works well on this 4-bar card. I've got these gifts that I assembled. I cut the cardstock, blue cardstock, kind of a peachy red cardstock, and then some more of that reversed foiled cardstock. Same for the hats. Those are made with the reverse foil and with silver glitter cardstock. I use clear glitter cardstock for some of the wrapping details. I've adhered all of those to the front of the card and decided not to put a sentiment. On the inside of the card, we're going to use 2 of the stamps from the clear Stampin' Die of the month. they are going to read, "Sending wishes wrapped up and tied with a bow. Happy birthday." And that pretty much fills the inside of this card. So honestly, all you'd have to do is write the recipient's name above and sign your name below. Bam, all done. This would work fantastic. I hope you enjoyed these 11 cards. I really had fun playing with all of the components here. It is so fun to play with these cute little animals and all of the extra pieces here. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't done that yet. Leave me a comment. Tell me what your favorite techniques or favorite cards for this theme. Let me know. If you're interested in any of the product that I used today, check that description box below for the visual link list that will have all of the supplies I've used. And until next time, here are a couple more videos I thought you might enjoy. Bye-bye.